we've reached that time. In the last two videos, we have not done the author of Praxis in My System any justice. So, let's give him his props because he could really play some chess as well. And I mean, one of the most popular openings in chess, as a namesake, the Nimzo Indian defense. Now, I love the principles of the Nimzo Indian, and we're going to see Nimzowitsch execute this effectively. After e3, the Rubinstein variation, we got castles, bishop d3, which is a typical move. Another move that's played frequently is knight ge2. This is the main line. And one of the major principles of the Nimzo Indian is if we're trading off this bishop, if you play d5 and trade off this bishop, you're going to be left with your remaining bishop being bad. So, this is a great example game of how to make your c8 bishop into a good bishop after trading off the bishop on the c3 square. So, c5. First of all, we're hitting the center with a pawn on a dark square instead of a light square. Knight f3, and he elects to change the pawn structure. So here, albeit d5 isn't the worst move in the world, it does create a bad bishop scenario. So the best scheme of development once trading off a bad bishop is to get to the opposite color with your pawns for your remaining bishop to make it stronger. So d6 is a very strong positional move. b6, and notice how all of our pawns are magically getting to the dark squares, and we're going to see e5 pretty soon, and this bishop has a lot of options versus if we would have played d5, much like in the French defense when it's stuck behind a pawn wall. Knight b3, there's that center we've been loving about. f4, and at this point, this is where black begins to push white back and take some initiative. e4, making you waste a tempi. Queen d7, flexible. And just making sure there's no real counterplay. The board's pretty well shut down. So how is he going to make progress? I love it. Just the square control in this game is ridiculous. a4. Nothing doing on the queen side for you, white. Again, no g4. Look at it. h5, knight on h6, knight on f6, bishop on c8. Everybody says no. My name is, it's bishop f1, flexible. Watching the a4 pawn, making sure that rook on a1 is not going anywhere. Rook c8, in case I want to take on d4, maybe at some point if you move your bishop off of f1, the c4 pawn is going to be weak, so white shuts it down completely. No queenside play, no center play, so it's all about the king side at this point. Ready for the breakthrough? King h8. Start the breakthrough. Without a pawn lever, there is no planning. Nimzowitsch is the only one in the position with a pawn lever, so now you don't want to release the tension too quickly here because that's how you give your opponent time. You want to optimize your attack. Rook g7. Getting our pieces closer, and now everybody is involved in the attack. Now we're ready to execute. Takes. Sneaky. Bishop a6. Working around to hit the c pawn. You want the b pawn, it comes for a price. Knight h4. And the breakthrough is going to be real. There it is. And another clean positional game based off of understanding. And I just want to come back to the opening, and a great example in the Nimzo Indian is when we get here and say this point we're already focusing on making our bishop better. And I've found that, say, players under 1400, when I'm analyzing their games, a lot of people play the Nimzo Indian because statistically it scores well. And they go, oh, I'm going to play like the professionals, I'm going to play the Nimzo Indian. But then they misplay this position and play moves like d5 here. I mean, b6 and c5, much like we see in the game, this type of pawn structure is what we're going for to make our remaining bishop the best piece it can be. So that's the major takeaway. I mean, one, don't be afraid of locked up positions, because as you can tell, if you got good square control, like Nimzowitsch runs a clinic in square control in this game, and you have the understanding of how to play your opening structurally, you're more than halfway there playing some decent chess.